bum, we're critical EDHing it. Don't sue us, McDonald's. You know, it would be pretty bad for us if someone sued CriticalEDH, but could someone mental misstep us?
Are we one mana value spells or one mana counter spells?
I don't know. What I do know is that here on your TV, from left to right, we have a list of spells that can be mental misstepped.
That's right.
We have mined the comments, Scryfall, and various deck lists of yours and mine for these spells.
Yep, and hopefully we chose like decent art, and maybe you can see this. If you can't, we'll post all of the results in the description of this video. But we've got a good handful of spells here. I don't know how many, but things that we might want to mental misstep. And I think it's kind of important to set the framework for this type of video. Tier lists in Magic are super hard, especially CEDH, because there's a lot of like what ifs and things like that. In this case, I think it's best to start off with, yes, it depends. It's always going to depend, and there's always like maybe a right or a wrong, or maybe there's some like kind of gray area in between.
Yeah, even if we develop these hyper elaborate contexts in which to evaluate the cards within, you would even have to extend beyond what's in each player's hand, or even if you know what's in each player's hand, how aggressive or defensive do they tend to play, and there becomes a point in which the variables become too much to traverse in order to like come up with a meaningful tier list. So I think instead of setting the bar at like, this is the universe's forever list for mental misstep, instead we're trying to delve our own experiences playing and think of, when I saw this card and I made the decision to misstep it or maybe not, how did that work out for me?
Yes, and also just the context of if like my opponent is playing a gamble, for example, do I want a mental misstep at that moment? Not would I do it? It's like, oh man, you know, just kind of is that context coming up? So let's just get into it. And I think we're going to start off with an easy one, or maybe it's going to spark a little bit of discussion here. We'll start with Birds of Paradise.
Birds of Paradise.
Now, this is going to cover not only Birds of Paradise, but let's say any one mana dork, because given the context, Birds doesn't really do anything special aside from be the generically kind of best one. And so I'll move the birds right into the placing category. So that's the one we're talking about right now.
Yeah. So as you're watching this video, you could imagine the birds being Llanowar elves, a Deathrite Shaman, or that one
Ignoble Hierarch,
the 2-mana red one that just came out in Dark Air. But you can't mental misstep it. Never mind.
Major misstep. Anyway,
Birds of Paradise. Let's see. When my opponents are playing this card, it typically represents ramp, but not in like a post-ad nos ramp. I feel like it's almost always setting up for a later turn. I'm not very scared of this card.
No, I'm not. I think actually, you know, we put all the generic dorks with the birds image, but birds especially has a unique interaction with Valley Floodcaller. So it does raise itself up a little bit as to, you know, something I would want to mental misstep. But I'm never really wanting a misstep when someone's playing a dork. It's just like, what are you doing? Like, taking somebody off of mana is not really it. And
you're also not really taking someone off with mana when you counter it, because you're removing their resources on a following turn. So unless I'm having difficulty imagining a situation where I saw someone play a Birds of Paradise at any point in the game, and then I reflected on it afterwards and thought, I should have countered that Birds of Paradise with that mental misstep. The old adage is bolt the bird. But I think that goes more for a 1v1 Magic than it does CEDH. And we didn't really talk about our tiers, but we have S, A, B, C, D, and F. Notably no E tier, because it's not really necessary. F is like a complete failure. It actually doesn't work for whatever reason. I don't think this falls quite into the F tier, but probably more towards like the D or C, at least from my opinion. I feel super comfortable putting it in the D tier.
Me as well.
D for don't mental misstep it.
Yes. All right, next we have 2 rituals. So we have Dark Writ and, where is it? This is going to be really hard. This is testing my knowledge of Magic here.
All right. Are you looking for...
Rite of Flame. Here it is.
There it is. Heck yeah. It's not as red as you would expect.
No, it's definitely not. But, you know, these rituals, Dark Writ and Rite of Flame, Dark Writ's an instant, so maybe it's valued a little bit more, makes 3 mana instead of 2.
Yeah. I think Dark Ritual is able to cast a lot more troublesome spells than Rite of Flame is, in my mind. One, because it's an instant, that means you're able to do some pretty intense shenanigans with like ad nause, as well as it gives you 3 black pips, which can be really difficult to get. So it also activates spells they may not be able to cast even if they have a ton of mana otherwise.
Such as like Necropotence?
Necropotence, Beseech the Mirror.
Also just like the Dark Writ into Opposition Agent is pretty common.
Yeah. Yeah. If I am tutoring and someone casts a Dark Writ, God, I want to have a Mental Misstep in hand.
Yeah, I think this is actually, I know I put these two together because they do fall in that ritual category, but I think Dark Writ, I would personally place around like the B sort of area.
Yeah, I might even feel comfortable putting it up into A just because it represents such a high level of variance. Rite of Flame.
The reason I would say kind of in the B and not maybe the A tier, because let's say there's a stack war going on and you have an opponent cast a Dark Writ, I'm kind of probably waiting for another spell to maybe counter, like a Tutor, and we haven't talked about any of those yet.
I guess the one thing about Dark Writ is it telegraphs that you're not going to be able to counter what comes next with your Mental Misstep.
That is true.
Which I think is the one reason I might want to put it a little bit higher.
Okay. Are we okay to just leave it at B for now?
Yeah, we can leave it at the top of B.
We can kind of reevaluate, and we can do a little bit of left to right too, to say maybe this is a bit higher on the B tier.
Rite of Flame? I'm way less scared of Rite of Flame. I think you most commonly see it either early on in Is It shells or in turbo lists. But double red doesn't turn on a lot of things aside from Final Fortune.
Where I see it most commonly right now is land, Lotus Petal, Rite of Flame, Ristic Study.
Yeah.
And like, if I counter the Rite of Flame, I'm kind of inherently countering Ristic Study. But I'm not really keen on doing that anyway. So like, we don't have a Swan Song tier list, but I don't know that I would Swan Song a Ristic Study.
No, I like.
Let's. What do you think? Like D?
Yeah.
Or C?
I would almost put it behind the birds.
There's some stuff you can do here with like Rite of Flame into, like you said, Turbo decks and playing Underworld Breach.
But the things I'm really, really scared about in a turbo list, I would rather hit their like Vampiric Tutor or their Imp Seal than I would their Rite of Flame, because sure, it lets them get Breach out, but once again, having the context of what's in their graveyard, I think there's a lot more dangerous one mana spells in those situations that will come across later on our list.
I also think it's a good example of what we were talking about when we started was, do you want a Mental Misstep when someone's casting a Rite of Flame? And even if it's in your hand or not, I think the answer is probably no.
No.
Yeah. All right. So let's move on to Dragon's Rage Channeler.
This spell sucks to counter.
All right. We'll put it in here. I think we can talk about it a little bit. DRC is just a pure value piece for most decks. It's a decent Tymna attacker.
Really good.
A little bit later into the game. And it helps shells like Mardu kind of get a little bit of value and kind of fuel their breach lines going up. But yeah, I mean, it's just like, it's even worse than a dork.
Yeah, I think you are most traditionally playing DRC if you're either in a Jeskai or a Mardu shell, and both of those have access to silence. So if I see a DRC, that's indicating to me that on some level they're a breach deck, and that means that like, while I may be able to shut them off of a few surveil triggers here or there, if they're in white, I'll just play my hand a little bit. I'm waiting for the silence.
Sure.
So that's why I would be really, really hesitant to.
Right. That totally makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's potentially an F.
Up next, well, we can organize these in a little bit. But like I said, F is kind of like a failure tier, where you can misstep a DRC, but there's other spells that you cannot misstep because of whatever reason. So we'll talk about that in a little bit.
Gotcha, okay.
Right now we're talking about Blood Chief Ascension.
Blood Chief Ascension. Talk to me a little bit about what your thoughts on the card. Blood Chief Ascension.
My thoughts are most CEDH decks should not be running it, but if there's a CEDH deck that's running it, we should probably counter it.
Yeah. I would say like 90% of the time that I see someone play Blood Chief Ascension, I think they've kind of like missed the target on the meta a little bit. But every now and again, I'll see like Italian play it.
And like it's kind of free there.
Yeah. Every now and again, though, I get like, it gives me the willies, bro. I'm like, I'm going to die to this Blood Chief Ascension.
Yeah, and then that's the time where you're like, okay, I see someone's casting this, I need a misstep, or I hope to God somebody at the table has a misstep. So I think this is pretty high on the list.
I would feel super comfortable putting it in either C or B.
Ooh, I think A tier.
You think A?
Yeah, because like, given the context of, I suppose it matters what deck you're playing. If you're playing a Bant deck, I don't care if you play a Blood Chief Ascension. Like it's not, I'm not using my graveyard that much for the most part. But if I'm playing a Breach deck, oh my God, this needs to go away.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And you can't really misstep it after it's on the field.
It is. It can be difficult to get enchantments off the board.
It's also very missteppable.
It is.
You see someone casting it, and it's like, oh well, what am I gonna do with my misstep that's kind of better than that? I would say it's A. It's not quite the top tier. What do you think?
Yeah, I definitely don't think it's top tier. Let's leave it in A and see where it lies.
At the end of this video, we'll go through and see if there's anything we need to quickly reevaluate.
We'll do a step test.
All right, Sensei's Divining Top.
I am so unreasonably scared of this spell. I think that I think of as being very similar to Blood Chief Ascension, where in and of itself the card isn't that scary, but the decks that run it use it to like run the show. I think of Elsha.
Elsha is the deck I think of.
And then you also have some other decks, like I know some Glarbs are on it to affect top deck manipulation. Or I think this is a super common card to see in kind of either Izzet or Jeskai Storm Shells.
Yes.
And so this is an indication, even more so than DRC, that they are prepping to storm off. And I think this gives them so many more options for kind of twiddle effects than a DRC does. So if they're casting Sensei's Div, they are having to convince me to not mental misstep.
It's also impossible to remove once it's on the field.
Yeah, because then they just like, oh, I'll just activate it.
Yeah. So I think it's very, very high. Do you think it's S or A? Because the decks that are running Sensei's Top realistically are ones that are designed to run it like Elsha. So I think that in those cases, if you see top, then it's probably worthwhile. I'm going to assume, let's take a very charitable look at the card and say that, while Glarb can run it, most Glarbs aren't running it because it's not like quite good enough. So let's say we're playing as an Elsha. That's the context we use for this.
I think in the situation, kind of going back to, I think this is a very like Jeskai Stormy. I feel like while I am terrified, they do also have silence. And silence is such a dominating.
Silence is not inherently a win con like it is in Elsha, though. Okay, let's put it this way. There's also Top Bolas Citadel.
Okay. Ooh, yeah.
Which is another precognition effect that is often seen in non-Jeskai lists. So in that case, top is an auto-include if you're on Citadel. So in that case, would you misstep a top if you see a Citadel in play?
Yeah, I definitely would.
Okay, so I think we should probably put this closer to S tier than A.
Yeah, that makes sense. Or especially like if it's a Rog side, like there's so many ways for them to just like cheat it out, the Bolas Citadel out, and then you're right, once the top's on the board, you just can't get rid of it.
Yep. I'm going to skip over this one for now. Well, I'll shift these around a little bit down here. But the next one I'm putting down is Reanimate.
Reanimate, it's not quite as strong an archetype in CDH as it is in Legacy or some other formats. But Reanimate always targets the scariest fucking thing. Either you're a deck built around reanimating like a Razaketh or something, or
you're reanimating a Thoracle.
There's just so many good creatures to hit in CDH.
Yeah. I don't think we really need to say a whole lot about this.
It's so strong.
If you're running Reanimate, or if you're running against a deck that plays Reanimate, if you're playing against a deck that runs Reanimate, what do you think?
Probably S. Like there's so many situations where if you don't hit the reanimate, you don't have a point of interaction afterwards.
The thing I would say about reanimate is that it has a definite target and it has an end point. So when they cast reanimate, they say, I'm casting reanimate targeting blah.
Yeah.
And then you can use your context clues of, is this something I need to misstep or is this something I want to misstep?
Yeah.
Because if they're reanimating I don't know.
A Hoarding Broodlord. Let's say they're reanimating a Hoarding Broodlord.
Yes, then it's obviously S tier. That is like, I need a misstep. If you're reanimating something like a mana dork, because they need to get to 3 mana to cast a 6 study on the next turn, then do you really want it there?
Yeah, if they have 8 cards in hand and they're like, I'm just gonna discard it. I'm like, okay, sure, whatever.
I think the ceiling on this is very high, and also like the middle ground is whatever. So somewhere between A and S tier, I think is probably.
I would think of it as very similar to top, in the sense that like it's in the deck because it's one of the stronger cards in there.
Sure. Okay. Next we've got Pyroblast or Red Blast.
Pyroblast or Red Blast. This is an interesting one because it's both a counter spell and a piece of removal. It is like such a strong card. If you have a mental misstep, that means you yourself are in blue. So there's a high likelihood it's either hitting your own spells or your own permanents.
Right. Let's say you've got a Consecrated Sphinx and you've got a Red Blast coming your way. Do you want a mental misstep?
Yeah.
Exactly. So I think this is pretty high on the list as well. In my mind, it's A tier because the Red Blast itself is not that powerful. It's like super low investment for my opponent, and mental misstep is like I see as almost no investment because you're paying 2 life. It's whatever, and then it's. Like, I don't want to use a Force of Negation on a Red Blast. I'd want to use a Misstep, because that's like a low tier spell, and then I'm using an even lower tier counter spell.
I also think that like Red E Blast hits almost basically all counter spells, as well as a large majority of permanents if you're in blue that say win the game. Like it hits Thassa's Oracle. Or
that was a good thing I was going to bring up, is that Red Blast is one of the few things that can be used to easily dispatch a Thoracle on the stack.
And so both if I am going for a win attempt, I want to be able to mental misstep that, as well as if like my opponent is going for a win attempt, by the time they're casting Red E Blast, I think that's an indication that they're running really, really short on counter spells, because they'll probably use their free ones up first in order to hold mana on for later.
Either that or they're trying to use their, like, oh, my Red Blast hits this. I need to use this first, and then I can start a counter war with a Red Blast. Because I do that often with like a Rogsai or any Krark deck. If I have a Red Blast and I can Red Blast a Thoracle first, then my opponent has to respond with a counter spell, and it shifts the context from a countering the creature to countering the counter. So then it opens up the door for me to use things like Force of Negation and things like that.
Ooh, that's really, really cool. Yeah, I think it goes high on the list.
Okay, so what do we say, A or S?
Maybe A above Blood Chief.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
Ooh, this next one's kind of fun.
Noxious
Revival. I would have put this pretty low until you started playing Glarb.
In Glarb specifically, Noxious Revival represents double Mind Break Trap, double Force of Will, Culling Writ now, Culling Writ later. Lots of things that you don't really want. And I think that certain decks can take really, really good advantage of Noxious Revival. And other times, like, the card's just kind of mid. So I think there's not really much to say about this one. It's not like Reanimate where it's as direct. It still does target, so like you see what the end result is, and then you can make a game time decision about it. So
I also think this is, aside from Birds of Paradise, this is our first green spell. And while green can do a lot of really, really cool stuff, I love it as a color shell. It's not a huge part of a lot of the biggest, baddest decks. So like Reanimate can be in Grixis, it can be in Esper. Whereas I think Noxious Survival you're mostly going to see either in TNT, Rock Thrash, or Kinnan.
I don't think TNT even plays it.
Yeah.
I'd say like probably Thrasius Tevish and like Rog Thras maybe.
Yeah.
Just kind of decks that are like 3-color or 2-color. Mm-hmm. I don't even think Kinnan plays Noxious Survival.
Yeah, because I think that they have just like other ways of getting around
So
it.
do you think that like these more specific decks like Glarb that can take better advantage of it, that's the reason to say, oh, maybe I need to consider what this spell can, because there's like kind of hidden text on the card
For sure.
in that case.
I think that in the decks that it's strongest, it doesn't represent the ability to like win like maybe a Sensei's Top does. It represents the ability of like resiliency.
Yes.
So I think I would almost feel a little bit more confident putting it in like C tier.
Yeah.
Because especially like you can't argue your way out of someone like Red E blasting your Thoracle, but you can say like, dude, don't get Culling Writ. I have to get rid of. I have to mental misstep it if you're Culling Writ. Just get your like your Consecrated Sphinx back or something, or something like that.
What about Exploration?
Exploration.
Talking about green cards.
This Exploration is so good. I think we've talked about this a little bit. I think a lot of these like Simic Plus piles could probably really, really benefit from being on Exploration or Burgeoning. But I don't think many of them are. I can see a world, especially once like...
We messed up. Burgeoning needs to be in Kodama.
that'd be really good.
Okay, anyway. Anyway, that's a discussion for another time.
This, I think...
this represents way too much value.
way too much value.
Especially in the decks that run it, and that's what we're going to use for context for this entire video is these a little bit more specific cards like Exploration. That's definitely a card that is running Glarb, because Glarb gets you access to the top of your library. You can play lands off the top. So Glarb with Exploration is like
It's insane.
It's insane.
I think, for instance, I think TNT should be on Exploration. And I think if TNT is able to resolve a turn 1 Exploration, I have a really difficult time seeing them losing that game, because it gives you access to so much mana that doesn't interact with Rhystic Study.
Yeah.
That being said, though, am I mental misstepping it, or is it like a Smothering Tithe effect where I'm just really annoyed that they have it?
But then you have to like line up with like, I've got mental misstep and Exploration early in the game. Like your opponent has to have an Exploration and you have to have a misstep, or maybe you want a misstep. But like if you see an Exploration turn 3, like, do I care at that point?
No.
Like the game's not lasting another 2 turns.
No, if I see an Exploration turn 3, I think they're wasting a green mana.
I think this might be at the front of like D or the back of C tier.
I would put it at the back of C tier.
Yeah.
Because I think I feel way more likely to mental misstep an Exploration than I would any of what we currently have in D tier, which is Birds of Paradise, Red of Flame, and DRC.
Sure. Let's move on to, let's say, maybe a bit more of a heavy hitter. Delighted Halfling.
Delighted Halfling. We talked about dorks earlier, but this one is a category of its own because it gives spells the ability to not be countered.
Only legendaries.
Only legendary.
So let's talk about One Ring or Commanders, or what other legendaries are there in the 99?
Bolas's Citadel.
Yeah.
Right. What legendary spells do people cast that Kutzil gives them an uncounterable Kutzil?
Okay. Teferi. 3 mana Teferi.
Yeah.
But like, I haven't seen a lot of that lately.
No.
I don't know. I think the context here is important because, yeah, it's still 1 mana dork, but it produces colorless largely unless you're using it to cast a legendary. But the decks that run this, like every green deck that I play runs this.
Yeah, that's my experience as well, is that you most often run this to cast the commander. And outside of that, it's mainly just a colorless dork.
Because we're familiar with it, let's use Glarb as an example. Turn 1, I play land, Delighted Halfling. Are you misstepping that?
No. I mean, I don't want you to have it.
With the intention of turn 2 uncounterable Glarb, right?
Yeah.
So,
but it doesn't matter to me that Glarb's uncounterable because I wouldn't be countering Glarb. And so if the main consequence of you getting the Delighted Halfling is that your Glarb can't be countered, then I don't know if I'm super worried about it.
I think this is at the top of D tier or the back of C tier. It's like above birds, right?
I would definitely put it above birds.
Yeah, but it's still not what I want to be doing with my Misstep personally.
Oh, I would think of it very similar to Birds of Paradise. It represents a problem later.
Yes.
Potentially a bigger problem later, an uncountable problem later. But you're most often going to see it in a way that represents a threat on turn 1 or 2. And I don't know if that's when you want to be using your mental misstep.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Next, we've got Brainstorm.
Brainstorm. I feel like Brainstorm, you kind of got to be in 2
Yuriko?
colors to run it. Yuriko or some is it nonsense?
Maybe Krark something.
Yeah.
I don't know. Brainstorm is just a powerful spell in general. And even in Glarb, I played it for a little while. The turbo leaning Glarb. I think maybe Elsha could run this to sort of rearrange the top. It's powerful, but it's not like legacy powerful where Brainstorm is it legacy or vintage? I don't know. One of the older, more powerful formats this is played. It's good, but like, do I care? Not really.
Yeah,
Have you ever misstepped a Brainstorm?
No.
Okay. Will you ever misstep a Brainstorm?
Probably not. I think most of the times what makes Brainstorm scary is a creature that's already on board.
Yeah.
Either an Elsha's using it to reorganize the top, a Yuriko's using it to reorganize the top.
Yeah, like, this 15 mana spell that's not supposed to be in my hand, I need it on top of my library. In that case, sure. Like, I'll misstep it. Like, Yuriko's not casting it for no reason. But in any other case, it's like, no.
Yeah, even in those situations, Misstep isn't what I want. Rollick is what I want.
Yes.
I want a nuke, nuke whatever.
You don't get Yuriko triggers.
Get the fuck out of here, Niv Mizzet.
Exactly.
Do I want to like hit your Krark before all your coin flips? Or I feel like that. While it does represent a problem, mental misstep isn't the solution I want in that situation.
Agree. So where are we putting it? D?
Yeah, I feel comfortable putting it at the back of D.
It's got to be above, not to be,
Yeah, let's put it above DRC, but behind Rite of Flame.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Next, we're going to move on to Into the Floodmaw.
Into the Floodmaw. I think there are 2 situations that I've seen Into the Floodmaw used in almost every situation. One, someone is about to combo off and they need to get rid of a Smothering Tithe or Grafdigger's Cage or something
Rhystic
like
Study.
that. Oh, any of those pieces before they storm off. Or it's defensive, like someone has cast an Underworld Breach or like a Seedborn or something, and this is the only thing that can get rid of it.
I think the spell's very missteppable, and let's say you have a Grand Abolisher, you had to end up passing because you don't have anything. On the person before you, on their end step, they're like, hey, I'm gonna bounce your Grand Abolisher with Into the Floodmaw.
Absolutely.
And it's like, okay, well in that case, I'm trying to untap with Grand Abolisher.
Absolutely.
I'm misstepping it. I think the spell doesn't represent any inherent danger, but it's obviously used to remove problematic things. And if you're trying to defend against those or trying to keep your pieces on board, misstep is what you want to deal with them.
Yeah. Someone can just cast Brainstorm on turn 1 or 2 just to get it out of their hand. No one is ever trying to get Into the Floodmaw out of their hand.
No.
If they are, you have made a huge mistake.
Or they're trying to find it.
Yeah.
Like they tutor for it. They're like, "Ooh, this is the one mana answer anything that I need."
Yeah, like someone's casting it either because they want to win the game or because someone's about to.
Where would you put this on our tier list?
Maybe above Dark Ritual.
It's got to be above Bloodchief, right?
You're right. It's got to be above Blood Chief.
Probably there. At least for now.
At least for now. Some scarier things could come along. Like Yoshimaru. Dude, whenever I think of 1 mana white spells that scare the shit out of me, I think of Yoshimaru.
It's the boy.
It's our guy.
I don't know about this. We're not going to talk too much about Yoshimaru. If you're using Yoshimaru, it's Yoshimaru Thrasios, or if you're crazy like me, it's Yoshimaru Silas. I don't think it represents a whole lot. It represents maybe like a fierce guardianship.
Yeah. If someone, if you're like playing Yoshimaru Silas or Yoshimaru Thras, and you cast Yoshi on turn 3,
and someone missteps it, you're winning that game.
So I don't know.
It's like, why are you doing this? I don't. I mean, it's a valid spell to misstep, but why? Why? Speaking of why, it is not the year 2023 or before. It is 2025. What about Sarah Ascendant?
I think Sarah Ascendant is scariest to Turbo Grixis shells, but
is Turbo scary right now?
But also, like, if you're Turbo, you should be able to get in front of it before it represents too much danger. Like, Sarah Ascendant is most likely going to take you out of the game after your Necro whiffs or your Adnaz doesn't get you deep enough. Outside of that,
the way I see it right now is that I played against a Turbo Rogsai the other night, and looking at the turns, they were doing their big combo on turn 3. So let's say player 1, seat 1 is playing Sarah Ascendant. Player 2, seat 2 is playing Rogsai. They go, okay, well, I don't need to swing the Sarah Ascendant anywhere else. I need to swing at the Rogsai. So turn 1, they play Sarah Ascendant. Is Rogsai misstepping it? Probably not. Because then turn 2, player 1 swings for 6. Okay, so now they're down to 34.
okay, yeah.
And then on turn 3, they go from 34 down to 28. And then it's like, well, I can still Necro for 25 or whatever and still be fine.
Yeah.
Is it really making that much of an impact? No. Is it slightly annoying? Yes.
Yeah. It's also like if I'm in a game and there's a Sarah Ascendant on board swinging at a Rogsai, I don't feel pressure to swing at the Rogsai player too. Like I'll let them.
I mean, like the more the merrier, right? Like,
but if they're like, I feel like Sarah Ascendant is most consistently run in Mardu.
It's a good Tymna attacker.
It is a good Tymna attacker. If I'm playing against like a blue farm though that's on Sarah Ascendant,
I'm holding my misstep.
Yeah,
I'm just going like, no,
I'm not
you
too
can
worried
have
about
this.
it. Yeah.
Speaking of Tymna attackers, we talked about DRC kind of being the same boat. Are we putting this down at the end of D tier?
I would put it above Yoshimaru. Poor guy.
No. He belongs down there. The lower you are on this list, the better, right?
Yeah,
he's a good boy. He's safe. He's very safe. Oh, do we need a Yoshimaru tier? Speaking of things that are questionable, Mystic Remora.
This is a controversial one, I think.
Yep. Let me. You can say your opinion, and then I can say my opinion that I say all the time.
I grew up in CDH with like always mental misstep the fish. Like someone would cast a fish, and then you just like wait for someone to have it, and you were always making this turn 1 gamble that someone didn't have a mental misstep, because if they had it, they were basically morally obligated to use it in that situation.
That was pre-ban days.
Now, if someone else is casting a fish and someone else is mental misstepping, I'm inserting myself to the conversation to say, don't.
Hold.
Hang on.
Please stop.
Do you have... Are the other 6 cards on your hand to counter spells?
Yeah, are they also mental missteps?
If not, I don't know about this, dude.
Yeah. The math doesn't work out, because if everybody's mulliganing for early fish, and then you misstep another fish, or you misstep a fish, it's somewhat likely that there's another fish early, like turn 1 or turn 2, and then like you don't have a misstep for that as well, and you're either that or you're relying on another opponent to have a misstep.
Yeah. Or every time I've seen a fish misstepped, this sounds like hyperbole. I promise this is just lived experience. Every time I have seen a fish mental misstepped, within the next turn cycle, there has been like a vampire tutor or an imp seal for a Rhystic Study or a Smothering Tithe.
Yes, or another fish.
And now you're just in this world where every time someone casts a 1-mana spell, the person who used mental misstep is like, God, I wish I still had my mental misstep.
There was a game that we recorded recently where I pitched a misstep to a to a gemstone because that was really my only good thing I could do. And while it felt bad because I value Misstep very highly, the player to my right, Austin, was like, "Oh, geez, don't you wish you had your Misstep now?" I was like, "No, I definitely wouldn't misstep the fish. Like you can have the fish, so I don't care." And we talked about like game state stabilization a lot. That's something we're pretty big on, where if multiple opponents and yourself, we all have draw engines, we can all kind of play the mid-range, let's try to not allow wins through, and then play the stack better than the other person and try to win that way. So
fish is also, you can solve the problem of someone having a fish other ways.
Yes.
You can just wait a turn to cast your Lotus Petal. I don't think fish packs are real. No. I think people who are like, oh, I'm not going to cast anything.
Ristic packs are real.
They don't have anything to cast anyways, but I think Ristic packs are relatively real.
Or Esper packs. Like, you can pay for Esper continuously. That's pretty easy. Fish packs at, like, green tables are kind of okay, because you can just, like, play land, dork, pass, land, dork, pass, you know, kind of do that thing. But, like, you know, decks are making mana and drawing cards. So, like, if their goal is to make mana, they're going to pay for the fish. Eventually, they're going to draw cards off of it until they can't.
If they are playing around their fish correctly, they are more than likely not doing anything except paying for fish for the next 2 turns.
Right.
And so, I don't know. I don't have an issue with that.
So where are we putting this?
Do we put it behind Yoshi?
Well, the other thing
if we put it in F, that's fucking clickbait. But
no, I'll make that the thumbnail. F question mark. Well, the other thing to consider with Mystic Remora is we're all talking about like early game Remora. There is like the mid game Remora, which is I think quite strong as well. Not to say that I would just like wait till turn 3 to play Remora, but like if I draw Remora on turn 3 and I play it and I can just like I have 5 mana to back it up. Oh yeah, that's pretty strong because the people are trying to like play the counter.
There's no point in the game in which Remora feels bad, especially like if I like see a silence in hand and I'm just I'm waiting for it to get to my turn and then I draw a fish. Fuck yeah, dude. Like now when people try to fight my silence, I'm going to draw an extra 4 cards.
I think because of that reason, like I put it kind of in the C tier. Because it's not wrong to miss up a fish, but early I think it kind of is. Maybe later it's a little better. Because like if your opponent has like double Ristic and then they try to drop a fish and you have a Misstep, I don't know, I guess you're drawing them 2 cards, but just by casting the Misstep, they're like, it just feels like it's adding insult to injury. You might want to just be like, okay, that's enough. It's kind of hard to say. What do you think?
I would maybe put it above Exploration, but I would feel comfortable putting it below Noxious Revival, actually.
Okay, sure. I could see that.
Yeah. Because Noxious Revival is kind of reanimating, actually.
Let's move on to the other draw engine that's misstepable. Esper Sentinel.
Esper Sentinel. I also don't think this is something you turn 1. But I do think I'm less likely to mental misstep a turn 3 Esper than I am a turn 3 fish.
Yeah, late game Esper's fine. Like it's payable and it only happens once.
But
the early game Esper is almost stronger. Like turn 1 Esper is like really really good. We've seen the CEDH TV video about win rates with Esper Sentinel versus Mystic Remora, especially post ban. I think the win rate with Sentinel is higher.
For sure, but I think part of what makes Esper Sentinel so good is the ceiling is so much lower than on fish. And so while you do have the ability to draw a lot of cards, what makes it strong is it's just not as scary. Like fish, if you're playing into a Roxai, you can draw like 8 cards by the time it gets back to you.
And Roxai can never pay for it.
Never ever going to pay for it. If there's an Esper Sentinel, people are pretty capable of like playing it. You know, you can land Lotus Petal, pay for it, that kind of stuff. As well as it's not going to like hit dorks. While it's not going to go away as quickly as the fish is. I think part of what makes it stronger is that it's less scary.
Do you think that this is more or less misstepable than a dork?
I think definitely more misstepable than a dork.
Okay. Do you think that makes it the front of D tier?
I would put it at the front of D tier.
Okay.
Same thing. Like if someone goes to mental misstep in Esper Sentinel, I think I'm going to actively try to stop them doing that.
All right. What about Ragavan?
Ragavan's spooky. Ragavan turns on a lot, right? He has a pretty high likelihood of turning on someone's Mox Opal, guaranteed chance of turning on their Mox Amber. It also gives them a lot of access to spells.
Flare of Duplication?
Oh, Flare of Duplication is so good!
I recently played Ragavan, and the whole table kind of went, why are you playing it? It's like turn 4. And I went, oh. It's like, maybe I have a Flare setting in my hand. And then I think Jacob, not Jacob Min, the other Blue Farm Jacob, was like, oh, he has Flare. And the whole table went, oh.
It's
like, it's pretty good.
Ragavan is so good. If you're able to land it turn 1, it catapults you so far ahead. And even later in the game, you can you can Scheming Symmetry and then dash it out to steal the card they put on top. This was one of my favorite cards in Blue Farm.
Okay, but how missteppable is it? More or less than, let's say, Exploration.
I would put it in a relatively similar level as Dark Ritual, I think.
Interesting.
It's a really scary card.
What if I think so many decks have adequate blockers for Ragavan though. It does turn on Mox Amber.
It turns on a lot of other mana.
Sure. Well, I think Exploration's ceiling is way higher because over the course of, let's say, Exploration turn 1, you can have 6 lands by turn 3. Whereas Ragavan, if you Ragavan turn 1, you have maximum 2 treasures plus 2 cards that may or may not be lands that you can't play.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's kind of on that like.
Yeah, I have seen just as many games where Ragavans only hit lands as they have hit, mana vaults, dramatic reversals, like all sorts of random stuff.
Okay. It's kind of a mixed bag. This one's hard to evaluate.
Yeah. Maybe in between Fish and Exploration.
Sure. I could see that.
Right.
Speaking of things that I could see, this happened to our friend Jason. Yeah. He got his Soul Ring mental misstep. How do you feel about that?
I've actually had my Soul Ring mental misstep a few times.
Do you think those players are any good that they're doing that?
No. Maybe I got a little tilted afterwards, but I happened twice at EG, and both times, every time there was like a Veil Somersaults on the stag, I just couldn't help myself but like turn and stare at the person in my Soul Ring. I become such a petty bitch if I have like.
I mean, that's like a totally fair reaction. Like I think that's very reasonable. I don't see a world where you're misstepping a Soul Ring unless it's like right on the edge of like a Underworld Breach line and they like really need the mana, or if it's like if they cast a Soul Ring, then they can use that to play a Thassa's Oracle from like a Mnemonic Betrayal or something like just.
Yeah, but the
it's
biggest
just not there.
It rituals 1 colorless into 2 colorless.
Well, I used Mnemonic Betrayal as an example because it can use any color.
It can use any color.
But yes, you're
if
correct.
If someone has resolved a Mnemonic Betrayal, I don't want a mental misstep. I want a loaded gun. Like I'm dead, bro.
All of these new players see these like crazy turn 1s where you have like land, Soul Ring, Arcane Signet, Mox Opal into whatever, and like it's just like the classic. Oh my god, that player's dumping their hand. It's all rocks, and then they've developed a lot of mana, which means they untap with like 4 or 5 mana on turn 2. And then they go, gee, I wish I had my mental misstep because if I stop them at land Soul Ring, then they don't get the Signet, then they don't get anything else, right? Is that a valid line of thinking, or is that? I mean, I know my answer.
I don't think so. I think potentially the most reasonable place to do this is for a turn 1 wheel. I think Soul Ring has a lot of ways of giving you turn 1 wheels.
But you can ask the question: what is your like? Okay, I see you're developing mana. I have a misstep. I'm going to misstep your Soul Ring unless you tell me you're not going to wheel me right now. Right?
Yeah.
But that's like a political thing. I totally agree. Where like I can see situations where that's really bad. But in reality, like I can't even tell you the last time I thought about misstepping a Soul Ring.
Yeah.
It's so low on my list.
It's just not on my radar.
So that means that it's in D tier.
Yeah.
Do you think it's above or below Dragon's Rage Channeler? Okay, better question. Do you think it's above or below Yoshimaru?
I would definitely put it below Yoshi.
Wow, he is not safe anymore.
It's just like Yoshi turns on Fierce Guardianship and Flawless Maneuver.
Deadly Relic, yeah. Okay. Well, I think that's enough about Soul Ring.
Get out of here, Soul Ring.
Now, let's talk about a heavy hitter, Crop Rotation.
Dude, Crop Rot's really bad. Even if it's like turn
No,
one.
it's really good.
It is really bad for me. If someone is casting a Crop Rot,
I see.
It's super good.
Yeah. Let's just start naming lands. Talon Gates.
Talon Gates.
You name one.
Gaia's Cradle.
Oh, interesting. Minimo.
Mistrise Village.
Midrise Village.
Ancient Tomb.
I don't think there's any more lands.
Wasteland, so that you can hit another one of your lands.
In Kodama, this represents sack a land, find a fetch land, Kodama trigger, fetch, and then Kodama trigger. Like I'm just saying, like if the deck is playing Crop Rot, they're up to no good.
Yeah.
They're not Crop Rotting for like Ancient Tomb. They're Crop Rotting for the bigger hitter.
I think Crop Rot is very similar to Into the Floodmaw, where you cast it either to solve a problem that wins the game or cause a problem that wins the game.
Yes.
This says, right, this is my Gaia's Cradle. This says this is my Emergent Zone. And
I was wondering which one of us was going to bring that up.
Alchemist Refuge.
That one's better.
What is it? Wandering Canyons. all these problems.
Hey guys, Loomer player can't name any lands.
All these problems I can't solve with a mental misstep.
Vesuva.
It can come out of nowhere. What's so good?
Mirror Pool,
Echoing Deeps. There's so many good lands. Give us prime time.
All right, so we're going up here,
it's
right?
Super duper strong.
We're going here, S tier.
It says win the game in a lot of decks.
I mean, Rogthras. If they're Crop Rotting and I don't have a misstep, I'm like, God, I wish I had a misstep here.
Yeah, or like Kinnan.
Because once the land's out, what are you gonna do?
It's so hard to get rid of.
Yeah.
Well,
let's say it's impossible to get rid of.
Yeah. Or do Cavern of Souls.
When was the last time you saw a land be destroyed? Legitimately.
I am a bad person to ask.
In a let's say in a full pod of meta decks, you've got, let's say, TNT, TNK, Kinnan, and Rogthras. Which of those 4 decks is destroying a land?
I only ever see people besiegeing other cradles.
Yes.
And oftentimes, by the time you're besiegeing the cradle, it's too late.
Yep.
But Besieju is a last ditch, I'm fucking out of interaction, or this is all I've got.
All I've got through the Grand Abolish or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I would say it's kind of the back end of S tier. What do you think?
I think I would agree. Because I think this would also be one of those, like, you can also kind of politic your way around this, because you can say, like, if you're going Gaia's Cradle, I have to mental misstep this. As well as... I think it represents so much potential, people will use this to bait out mental missteps.
The problem is that the land goes, though. So they're kind of down a land, but I can see that as
If you have an Elvish Spirit Guide and the land's already tapped.
It's also like, Crop Rot's usually like kind of what I would call an afterthought spell, where, the whole turn cycle goes around, and it's like the turn before you, and you're like, oh, by the way, I have this Crop Rot.
If like a Kinnan's making a win attempt, we're looking at their board, we're guessing what's in their hand. I don't think anyone at that table thinks, well, they might have Crop Rot.
Right.
We're going to be more focused on like the Seedborn and the Nezal, and I think that's part of its strength. It's super scary spell.
Speaking of back of S tier, how about an offer you can't refuse?
When people talk about an offer you can't refuse, I almost always hear them talk about countering their own spells as a ritual.
Yeah, I'm seeing that a lot more now lately than before.
Yeah.
My opinion of offer is pretty low right now. I'm not really an offer enjoyer.
No. I've seen it activate so many Mox Opals. I've seen it turn on Flusterstorms and Swan Songs.
I don't want to play offer against Kinnan because then they have 4 mana for some reason.
Yeah.
It's just not that great, but it is a counter spell. So I don't think that means it's necessarily in D tier.
And it hits so many super duper strong things.
We've got a really good bathtub curve going on right now. We're kind of high on the S and A. I think this kind of falls in like the last of the B tier.
Last of the B tier.
Because usually, like, if someone's offering a spell, it's probably your spell that they're countering, right?
Yeah.
So using a misstep here seems appropriate. What do you think?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, let's put it in B for be the one to mental misstep it.
Let's start diving into some of the tutors. We've got Scheming Symmetry.
Didn't this get mental misstepped earlier today?
I misstepped my own Scheming Symmetry for reasons unknown.
For reasons you can check out in a video soon to be released.
Spoiler alert, someone notable was commandeering my Scheming Symmetry.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? I have a misstep. I think I could probably just not give them that.
I think that if a spell is worth commandeering, it's worth mental misstepping.
That's true. So where does that... Being that Scheming Symmetry is probably... It takes kind of a certain deck to use it, or maybe they have an opposition agent and then they're going for it. Where do you think that?
I would put it above Blood Chief, under Into the Flood Maw. I don't think it signals a win quite as much as like bouncing, a Dampening Spear does. But if someone is Scheming Symmetry, like casting it, they're either casting it to give my opponent's interaction, or there's an oppo.
Or it's just really, it's just 2 Imperial Seals on a stick.
Yeah.
And like, that's really strong.
Like 2 tutors is very, very strong.
Yeah. And I think that says a lot about Scheming Symmetry as a card. It's a pretty misused and misunderstood card. And people are like, I don't really want to give my opponents a tutor. But you can also like kind of politically say like, well, I'll give you the tutor if you can tutor for something like this. And I'm always going, I'll take whatever you can give me.
Yeah.
Like give it to me.
Yeah.
I'll get whatever you want me to get. Like, I'm happy to do that. You know what I mean? Like, and I'll show it to you.
Yeah, for instance, I'll say like, oh, I'm thinking of casting this Scheming Symmetry. You say, oh, I'll just like put a land on top. And what I hear is like, oh, I get to take you off a draw for a turn, right?
Or I need the land, right? But like, then it just turns into Imperial Seal.
Yeah. Which Imperial Seal plus like we've got a little bit of a thing going on now.
But if you're a third party to that conversation and you have a misstep, you go, oh shit, these people are fixing their own problems with one spell. And I can misstep and take care of both of those things.
Yeah.
So I think it's pretty accurate to put it sort of at the back of A tier.
I like that. I like that spot for it.
What about Mana Vault?
Let's kind of like revisit the Soul Ring conversation in our mind and think about how the access to 1 extra colorless mana, but only once, alters it.
Well, we say only once, but there's a lot of Seedborn Muses floating around.
Or a lot of Seedborns.
And this kind of represents into, let's say, you can get into Seedborn faster, right?
Yeah.
And then if you untap with this, then it's High Fae Trickster afterwards, because now you have 3 colors to pay for a High Fae. That's kind of diving into worst case scenario. This
Yeah.
is also like Ancient Tomb, Mana Vault, One Ring, turn 1.
Like someone can cast a Soul Ring and then that's it. Maybe they turn it into one other rock. Mana Vault opens the door so much wider than Soul Ring does.
Sure.
In terms of early explosiveness, as well as like post ad naz potential.
This is a good one where you can have a conversation with your opponent and say, what are your intentions with Vault? Like, what's going on here? Are you just passing after you're playing Vault? Because if the answer is no, then maybe you do want to consider misstepping it a bit more.
Yeah, I think that, or for instance, after like a huge Necro, if someone like Born Upon a Wind and then they start with a Mana Vault, I think you kind of have to start there.
Maybe. Be careful with that analogy, though, because if they're doing Born Upon a Wind after a Necro, they also are probably trying to win the game, and there are some other spells here that might be more missteppable. So I think it's higher than Soul Ring.
I would definitely put it higher than Soul Ring.
But Soul Ring is the last on the list.
Yeah.
So
I would maybe put it above Delighted Halfling behind Esper.
Okay.
Because I think there are more situations I can see myself
Really?
wanting to hit a mana vault.
I can see hitting a mana vault before an Esper almost every time.
Well, he got me there. Yeah. I also think there are some situations where
If I can do it.
I
But like, I want to misstep an exploration before I misstep a mana vault.
yeah,
Yeah.
more often.
But okay, if that's true, is it here? Or is it in front of D? Because D is getting pretty long right now.
D is getting pretty long. Yeah, let's put it in C for I could see myself mental misstepping it.
All right. Speaking of seeing things that you could mental misstep, what about Imperial Seal?
Imperial Seal. I don't think so. I think going back to like heuristics that I kind of grew up on in CDH of like, you know, hit the tutor, not what they're tutoring for, because you don't know what they're going to be tutoring for.
Have you misstepped an Imperial Seal, let's say in the past 2 months?
No.
I have twice.
Really?
Yeah. I think it's worthwhile to consider the options in which players can use an Imperial Seal, even though it's at sorcery speed, to on their turn draw that card.
Mm-hmm.
Also consider decks like Glarb, in which you can use Imperial Seal at sorcery speed to put something heinous on the top of your library.
It's really good in Blue Farm or anything
Because
that
Blue
can
Farm,
cantrip.
Timna, you draw the card after.
Anything with the One Ring, yeah.
Right. So I think it's above Sentinel, probably above Mana Vault, but maybe still below Exploration.
I would definitely put it behind Ragavan and Fish.
Okay. I think probably above Exploration, just because the possibilities are quite open. I think it's above Ragavan. I mean, a Universal Tutor. Ragavan is not a Universal Tutor.
No.
And also not many decks are in red right now.
That's true, yeah.
Okay. So then we take it up a step. I'm not misstepping a Fish.
I can't remember the last time I mental
Okay,
misstepped a
so
Fish.
this Fish is going down.
Okay,
Like, I think Fish is here.
yeah.
I'd rather Vault than Fish.
I think I'd definitely put it behind Noxious Revival because like you can negotiate with people. Like I don't think this is the time to push.
But I see so many games being won off of Imp Seal. Because I think decks are finding new and creative ways to get around the disadvantages of it being sorcery speed and also only to the top deck.
I mean, all this
Not necessarily new and creative, but like, let's say there's a Facebreaker and you need to, you just exile sack a treasure, exile the top card of your library. Oh my god, it's what I just Imp Sealed for.
Yeah. If someone is in a position where they have a professional Facebreaker, treasures, and an Imp Seal, I feel like you've got a lot of really, really big problems.
True, but if you have a misstep, then I'm misstepping that Imp Seal.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess that like so in that situation you're in.
I might have traumatized you with Noxious Revival, but I do think Imp Seal is stronger.
Well, I more just think of like what in that situation probably what they're imp sealing for is either a counter spell or a silence. I feel like.
Yeah, I suppose it doesn't inherently represent a win, but we are debating over if it's going at first or second position in C tier.
Yeah.
It's in my mind, it's a universal spell. So
Universal tutors are really strong.
yeah, I think we'll just put it. If I can do it, here we go. We'll do that. We'll reassess. Speaking of universal tutors, we've got Vampiric Tutor.
Vampiric Tutor I think is a lot worse.
Yeah.
Sorry. It is worse for me when they cast it. Sorry.
Absolutely.
Sorry, I keep saying that. Like, because you can, like, if you have a Heuristic Study and you're in the middle of a counterspell battle and they cast a Vampiric
Oh, in response to
Tutor.
my study trigger.
Yeah.
Here's a Vamp Tutor.
Oh God! Oh no!
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, they tricked me. No. You can't have that Vampiric Tutor. I'm sorry.
I think this is at the back of S tier, probably above Crop Rot. Mm-hmm. Actually, it's better than Reanimate too.
I definitely think it's. Does this jump all the way to the front of S tier? I don't think.
Oh yeah, what are we doing?
I don't think it's
Of
going
course.
I don't think it's going to stay at the front of S tier for super long. But I think with the amount of draw engines and the fact that it's a universal tutor and instant
It's sorceries. It's not a sorcery.
Yeah. So good.
All right. Speaking of not a sorcery, we've got Mystical Tutor.
Mystical Tutor.
I haven't been super high in Mystical Tutor, but the decks that play it, like Rogsai and sometimes Blue Farm, yeah, I mean, like, they're spell decks. They're going to look for something good. But, like, Rogthras isn't playing Mystical Tutor.
No, I also am less scared of it because you have to show me what you're getting.
Yeah, but then, like, once they show you, what can you do about it?
The fact that they have to show me means that I can.
But there's no window for you to, like, prepare before they cast it.
No, but you're able to, like, I think you're able to relatively, with a solid amount of consistency, ascertain from the board state and the way that they've been positioning themselves, either during their turn or someone else's turn, what they're going to get. Like if someone is, let's say they're tutoring for an extra turn spell, like you're going to have, there will be signs. Or if someone is using it to get a counter spell, you'll have. My assumption is you're going to have all the evidence you need to know if they're getting a counter spell on board when they cast it. And so all that information makes me a lot less scared of it.
Yes, and the information is one thing, but for me that's a bad heuristic because, like, I don't care. Like, let's say I Mystical Tutor for... I use Glarb as an example because I played Glarb a lot.
Yeah,
I Mystical Tutor, but Culling Ritual on top. And then the next step is my opponent's going, oh shit, there's a Culling Ritual on top. And then I'm casting Culling Ritual. It's the same for Vampiric Tutor. I do the same thing. I'd cast Vamp Tutor, put Culling right on top. They don't know what it is, but the next step is me casting the Culling Ritual. So, like, the end result's the same, but there's something that doesn't use the stack, which is my opponent's going, like, and just staring at my...
Oh, yeah, for
You know
sure.
what I mean? But, like, that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter from my perspective.
Yeah.
So it's kind of weird in that situation, but I think the bigger difference is that Mystical Tutor rarely represents a win because it's very hard to just find an instant or sorcery that gets you to that, like, win of the game.
Yeah.
Unless you're tutoring for silence.
I think most of the scariest things that Mystical Tutor can get can also be hit by Mental Misstep.
Yep.
With the exception of maybe Adnaz.
But when was the last time you saw someone Mystical Tutor for an Adnaz?
That's rough. That's the you don't want to let people know that far ahead of time.
This is another one where you can ask what they're getting, and it's not them showing you. It's that you can ask and say, I'm going to misstep your tutor unless you tell me what you're getting off of this. Because, like, if you're afraid that they're going to get a wheel or something like that, you really don't want them to wheel.
As opposed to, like, with the crop rot, the land's already gone. Like, they are so far behind if they, like, don't get whatever, cradle or things like that.
So where does that put this on the list?
Maybe in front of Vault, behind Exploration.
Interesting. I do think it's a tutor, and Exploration is not quite a tutor.
I would definitely put it behind Ragavan.
I think it's this way. Hold on. I think that's that way.
God, we play too much green.
Yeah.
That, or you guys don't play enough Exploration.
I think Mystical Tutor in the middle of C is probably about where I'd rate the card and also rate its misstep ability.
Oh, heck yeah.
Speaking of tutors, Enlightened Tutor.
I think Enlightened Tutor gets and or should be countered more times than Mystical Tutor.
Yeah. It's way freaking stronger. You can get Rhystic, Mystic, Esper Sentinel, Smothering Tithe, Defense Grid, Underworld Breach. It's part of, like, Underworld Breach lines and getting LED and those things. So
Enlightened Tutor is a good example of someone letting you know that they can't be reasoned with because it's so good. It gets so many good cards. There's no way that you can say, like, oh, just get an Arcane Signet. Like, what? Fuck no, I'm getting Breach. Like, if you're gonna counter it. Like,
wait, you can't get Bergie.
No, Breach.
Oh, Breach.
Yeah.
Okay.
Breach is so good.
Dude, we are so cooked if there's ever a artifact Grand Abolisher.
Oh, dude.
Because that means that there's a way for Jeskai to inherently tutor for it that's like really easy.
Oh yeah, or you can, like, Goblin Engineer for it and stuff.
Yeah.
Oof, duh.
Speaking of this spell, that means that it's better than Mystical Tutor. Are we talking, like, front to B? It's better than Dark Writ.
It's definitely better than Dark Writ.
Okay. Is it better than Blood Chief? Better than Floodmaw.
I think it's better than Floodmaw. I don't think it's better than Pyroblast.
Interesting.
Or Ready Blast.
Yeah.
Like people can turn 1 Enlightened Tutor for Esper Sentinel. You're not turn 1 Ready Blast. Probably. If you're casting a turn 1 Ready Blast, then someone's casting
It's
a turn
somewhere
1
in the A
Oracle.
tier. I think this is
Yeah.
fine. Yeah, and it's hard to say it's better than this or that. It's up there.
Yeah, it's definitely a good spell to Mental Misstep.
Speaking of which, we've got Entomb.
Entomb. If someone's casting an Entomb, they have planned for this moment. Their deck is built around this moment. They are counting on you saying, "Meh, it's just an Entomb. How bad could it be?"
On the other side of an Entomb is, like a Protean Hulk or something like that,
man.
and you're just like, ugh. Although I have seen Entomb be like used in Yuriko where they put like a Wonder in the graveyard, and I'm just like, okay, like I don't, whatever.
You're gonna have to talk me out. If you're casting an Entomb, you're gonna have to like jump over the moon to convince me not to counter it, because.
Or let's say just misstep it.
Yeah, misstep it specifically, just because if you are on this card, it better be one of the best cards in your deck.
Yeah. Do you run any decks that run Entomb right now?
Not right now.
I'm not an Entomb gamer either.
No.
Not a big fan.
I think the ones that tend to utilize it strongest are Mardu and Abzan.
Yes.
Either because you're able to do shifting woodland stuff, or any of these like Reanimate Broodlord or Razaketh. Or,
Imagine a 1-mana green Entomb for Lumra.
oh, dude.
Yeah, this spell is pretty strong. So I think this is a B.
B.
Above Dark Rit.
I would put it in front of B. Yeah, because Dark Rit, they could just be slamming down rocks.
And part of the reason why it's in B and not A is because we don't see it that often.
If it was more common.
Yeah, for sure.
Like if Gristlebrand gets unbanned, it goes like to A or S.
Well, the other reason is that it's not very common, but it's part of a larger picture, like let's say a line, where you can't just Entomb and then like, oh my god, they win the game.
Yeah.
It's usually Entomb and then followed by Reanimate, which is also on this list, or some combination of things that
like Dance of
it's
the
like
Dead
steps. And like maybe it's the first step, but usually it's not like the only point of interaction.
Which is, I think, why it's not traditionally seen more, is because it really, really telegraphs what you're doing. You can't like, oh, is it okay if I just Entomb a land? Like if you're doing that, you've set yourself so far behind because you probably kept that hand on the Entomb. So it doesn't offer as much flexibility as maybe some of the other tutors does.
Let's do a fun one. What about Flusterstorm? Have you ever misstepped a Flusterstorm?
I think I did once because there were only 2 copies of it and I had 1 mana. But that is such a niche situation.
This is the one that I would say belongs in the F tier. The
Yeah.
way that the spell works, it doesn't matter if you counter the original, there's still a storm trigger that's following it. And does one misstep really do anything?
Yeah.
Like 99% of the time, it doesn't.
Well, and also like anytime you're going to mental misstep it, let's say that someone's like, oh, I'm going to put 1 copy of Flusterstorm on everything on the stack. You can just say, if you're going to hit my Worldly Tutor, or if you're going to hit my Reanimate, then I have to mental misstep. Can you just put another copy on the Silence or something like that?
Yeah.
I think that like this is a great example of if you're going up against this spell, mental misstep is not the best tool.
It's not really a tool that you can use against it. And also, this is just like a failure point where a lot of new players in CDH will see 1 mana and counter target spell with 1 mana, and then like not connect the dots. So for that reason, I think it belongs in F tier.
Yeah, get out of here, F tier.
Speaking of F tier cards,
F for Fluster.
speaking of F tier cards, what about Demonic Consultation?
You have to mental misstep the Demonic Consultation.
I mean, I've just seen so many people kill themselves with Demonic Consultation. Why are we misstepping it?
If you're Demonic Consultating in response to my Demonic Console, you got this. Go for it. You can do it. You get that. You can have that console on me.
I think the context of this is important. This is not last thing is like demonic consultation. You know, let me find a counter spell in response because I don't have anything. In that case, if you're the attacking or the player that's going for it, maybe a misstep is worth using, because if that's really their last piece, you don't want them the chance of them finding that piece. But really, it's like, you know, Fast as Oracle, demonic consultation. Dear God, give me the misstep.
If I would say like 99% of the time, if someone is casting demonic consultation for a counterspell, you've already got them over a barrel.
Yeah.
Like, otherwise, I think it's primarily being used because you just cast a Thassa's Oracle.
And you're trying to win.
And in which case, it literally says win the game.
And that probably should bring it to the top of S tier. Yeah.
You did it, buddy. Good work.
Let's go for silence.
Jesus, this is an incredible spell. We've been talking so much about how in a world where everyone has so much resources and so many flash speed enablers, something that just pushes the pause button on all your opponents being able to do anything is so powerful. It reduces your opponents to the potential of drawing an Otawara or a Beseju off their fish. And those are really, really, really bad odds for your opponents.
Yeah, I think that silence is a unignorable spell. It makes a statement that says, I'm trying to win now, you deal with it. And either that or they're silencing you on your upkeeping. Like, please give me the misstep. Like, praying to God that I have it.
I have never seen people talk more than when silence is on the stack.
Then that starts the whole, like, I'm playing on top of the silence and ignoring it. I have flash speed and here, watch me go.
You'll find out who's been sandbagging real quick when someone casts a silence.
For sure.
I think silence brings out every single counter spell you have in your deck.
But the first one I'm using is probably Misstep, right? Because it's easy. Misstep is good. Like, it's free. So where would we put silence?
I'd
rather Misstep a silence than a Vamp Tutor.
Yeah, I would actually. I think if someone is able to resolve a demonic consultation, the odds of like someone having like a Cephalid Coliseum or a Fairy Mastermind, or if they have an Archivist of Ogma and I have like a Affectionate on board, is way higher. Or at the very least, if someone has demonic consultation on the stack, we're able to assess at that moment if we have those other tools, or you and your like your comrade in arms while your opponent's winning can like make eye contact and like look at the card while they're looking at their hands, as opposed to a silence. All bets are off. Like you've got to you never have enough access to information to know if you can let the silence through. So you always have to stop the buck there.
Yep, and it's really hard to say because I've seen so many times where someone's casting a silence to stop another player. The player keeps trying to play and like can't get there, and then all of a sudden the player who's casting a silence just drew a bunch of cards.
Yeah.
And then like, oh wait, now that my silence is resolved, I can now get there.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, oh, we should have countered the silence instead of just like leaving it sit.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. It is. Even if the person casting the silence is on your side, you always have to be like, is that your only option?
Yeah.
It's such a powerful spell. I think silences. I think that like a couple months ago, you had to be in red for Dockside, and
we're getting pretty close to being like you need to be in white to be competitive.
I think so, because I think there's just so many risk studies out there. You can't just be in blue. You need to have the ability to say right now. Like you look at your opponents and say right now. If you're doing anything, right now.
Exactly.
So that's for me. I think maybe put silence at the top. S for silence tier spell.
Oh, interesting. I can't move 2 to 1. I can move 1 to 2.
Interesting.
Thank you, tier list maker. Speaking of weird kind of silence effects, Veil of Summer?
Veil of Summer is really good. I would put it above Vampiric underneath Consultation.
Yeah, Veil of Summer is problems now and later. Like it fixes your problems. Like last on the stack, you go, here's a Veil Summer. All of my stuff is uncounterable if this resolves. And then like you also draw a card for some reason, and then all of your permanents get hexproof. Like that's not good.
But I do think that one, the fact that it's in green makes it less scary, because oftentimes that means that there's going to be some type of like creature combo or interaction that like you can use a non-blue or black spell, like a Path of Exile.
Right, but I earlier today had tried to remove a Seedborn Muse, and in response it got Veil Summered, and I'm like, well shit, I wish I had a Misstep.
Yeah.
So it's pretty high on the list.
Oh, definitely. But I think out of, you know what, like we have what, like 20 on here? I think being third out of 20 is still pretty good.
Oh yeah, I think it's third. I think it's above Vamp Tutor.
I would, I would put it behind Consultation, above Vamp Tutor. Because I agree with you. I think that like Veil Summer is a great card to just be the last spell in the stack. And it does shut off a ton of interaction. But it doesn't, like you can still Mindbreak Trap, you can still sudden substitution, you can still commandeer, you can still misdirection. There's still like a lot of ways to interact with it.
But not many. Not many that are good.
Not many that are good, which is why I think it's near the top of the list, but behind Silence.
The other thing is, usually it's like a spell in a stack war where the player is capping off and they're saying, this is the last thing I have. It fixes all of my problems down below it.
Absolutely.
And then deal with it.
Oh yeah.
And then if you don't have the ability to deal with that, you're fucked.
Yeah.
So I think that, yeah, if you hold the Misstep for the entire game, you don't misstep any of the spells in A through F, and you get to that point where that player is playing Veil Summer, and you're like, oh, thank God, I've held this Misstep. And then they're like, oh, cool, Veil Summer, does it resolve? And you're like, actually, I have one thing, Misstep.
Yeah.
And like, you've resolved all of your problems. Like, you've fixed all of your problems.
Deflecting SWAT can't hit Veil. Misdirection can't hit Veil. Like a lot of these like secondary spells that we like putting in because of their utility, we like to have in there, but Veil of Summer,
Red Blast can't hit Veil.
It's very tricky to deal with, and Mental Misstep is one of the best.
It's the silver bullet against it.
Yeah. So yeah, that's why. Do you think it's better than Demonic Consultation?
In its own way, it represents a win, maybe not as directly. I think it's right up there with it. It's kind of hard to say with the S tier, like what the order is.
I think there is definitely a world where Veil of Summer can be above Demonic Consultation. I think Demonic Consultation is just a part of the best combo in our format.
And we need to be aware of that. And it's something we're going to see a lot. So it's really hard to say. Speaking of things that are hard to opine on, what about Worldly Tutor?
Worldly Tutor, I'm not too worried about Worldly Tutor. I think it's kind of out of vogue for Kinnons to be running it. And so outside of that, I think people run Worldly Tutor because they don't have access to better options. I don't think I'm too worried about Worldly Tutor.
No, I'm not either, but it is a tutor. And speaking of tutors we're not worried about, it's kind of close to Mystical Tutor, but I think below.
I think that's a good place to put it.
Yeah. And the art's kind of similar, so, right next to each other.
I think Worldly Tutor is also one of those things where you can tell before they tutor what they're tutoring for. I think you should have enough context clues. Gamble, though, it could be anything.
It literally could be anything.
Literally could be anything.
But Gamble is one of those spells that kind of represents, like, Underworld Breach shenanigans for the most part. And I don't like Gamble's resolving.
I don't like it, Sam. I am not in a plane or a train or a car, not very near or very far. I do not like Gamble.
No, but that doesn't mean that I should be misstepping it, though.
People gamble as the last step before everyone else scoops. With the exception of like if you're like a Ral or a Rogsai who had to go down to 3 and this is just like your last chance to get in the game, in which case do not mental misstep it. But I've
seen so many lines in which Underworld Breach there's sufficient cards in graveyard, and they're just casting Gamble over and over again because they have a lot of red mana from a Juska's Woe or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
And you're like, oh, well, they can just put the entire freaking line together with just Breach and Gamble. And like, in that case, that's when it's strongest.
Yeah, or or like people say, well, oh, don't counter it because there's a chance they may put what they need into the graveyard. But if you're on Gamble, you don't care.
In the slightest.
If anything, cards tend to be safer in the graveyard than in your library or your hand a lot of the
And it's also
times.
kind of like Red Entomb half the time. Like, that's the joke, right?
Which is what they want.
So, like, if it's both simultaneously, this is Schrodinger's Tutor. It's simultaneously Red Entomb and Red Imp Seal. It should be somewhere between those two, right?
I would maybe put it.
Where is our Imp Seal?
Imp Seal is C, and Entomb is B.
Yeah, so maybe at the back of B.
I think that works.
But yeah, be aware of the Breach line. If they have Breach and they're gambling, counter it and make them use another 3 cards, another mana.
Yeah, one of the things I'm trying to beat out of myself is I'm like, oh, like
You're doing what to yourself?
Jacking it out.
Flicking it.
Is I'm like, well, how bad is it really? It's bad. It's
But like if they're gambling and it's like, turn 3 gamble, they have 6 cards in hand, like, you're probably fine.
Yeah. I think Gamble is potentially one of the most context sensitive cards that we've evaluated so far.
And I think that's middle of the pack.
I think that's representative where it is. It's like
What about Swan Song?
Swan Song, meh.
What do you mean, meh?
It's like a really strong spell, but Swan Song can only hit enchantments,
Instants and sorceries? How many times have you missed up the Swan Song?
I don't know if I've ever mental missed. Surely I have mental missed up to Swan Song.
I do it all the time.
I would just like. I feel
Dude,
like
I love playing this stack. Right? So like, imagine a stack war, right? And then a Swan Song is like an easy 1 mana counterspell.
Swan Song is such a middle of the pack counterspell. I feel
Really,
like.
I think it's excellent.
Oh no! I think it. I mean, middle of the stack. Like.
Okay. Yeah.
Sorry, not middle of the pack. Like I think it's a great counterspell. I think I didn't run it for a little bit because I was a greedy fucking goblin and I was incorrect.
Yeah.
You should be running it, but I think that like if someone's on Swan Song, I don't know. Like that's the if like Silence can be hit by almost nothing, Swan Song can be hit by almost everything.
I've been in a lot of situations where I'm casting a Ristic Study and I would say like a less experienced player would go, here's a Swan Song.
Yeah.
And I go, look, I have a Misstep. I don't want to misstep your Swan Song because we're literally just handshaking. Like we're it's like a transactional thing.
It's bad.
Did it stop? Oh, I see. Yeah, iPad. You're fine.
We see you, iPad. We recognize you.
You were seen.
You are valid.
It's like that handshake of like transactional. I'd rather you just hold your Swan Song. I'll hold my Misstep. We can move on with our lives. I'll have my Ristic,
But I don't think that means Swan Song is good. I think that just means mental misstep.
No, but I'm saying like that's an instance in which Swan Song is often misused, right? So then I can show a Misstep or I can say like, look, I'm just gonna counter it or whatever. But
I don't know.
Swan Song,
I think
you're right, is used often in the middle of a stack. So in that case, I want something to just kind of dispatch it quickly and then move on with the stack if we need to. Misstep is probably a good tool for that.
I mean, it definitely like Swan Song is a 1 CMC spell.
But it's the most common 1 CMC counterspell aside from Flusterstorm.
Or Offer.
No, it's way more common than Offer.
You think it's more common than Offer?
Oh yeah.
Offer hits a lot more stuff than Swan Song.
It does, but it's way worse.
I don't know. I think I just wouldn't want to evaluate a card under someone else using another card in the wrong circumstances.
I would never leave home without Swan Song.
I definitely wouldn't either. But if someone is like Swan Songing something incorrectly, I have other problems than that Swan Song.
Okay, leave out the incorrectly part. Let's say they're correctly using Swan Song. I'm probably misstepping it.
If I have, let's say, if I have mental misstep and Force of Negation, and
Well, say it's your turn.
and it's my turn. Yeah.
I think this is probably the front of B for me.
Yeah. I don't want to Force of Will it. I don't want to Flusterstorm.
I don't want to use any of the big spells on it.
Yeah.
I don't want to Mind Break Trap.
No.
Like Misstep is simultaneously a good spell, but also free. It's like nothing. It's simultaneously everything to me, but also nothing to me.
Wow.
And like if I see a Swan Song, I'm like, oh, this is easy. Like this is high enough on the tier list
Dude,
where
you're
I'm
convincing me, man.
like I'm using it, right?
Okay.
And if a Veil comes after, I'm like, fuck.
Yeah.
But like, but you know, it's like you have to use the information you have at the time to evaluate those things.
Okay.
I think it's pretty high.
Okay. Let's. Where'd you put it?
Probably above Red Blast. Like, actually, maybe right about here.
That feels good. I think beneath Enlightened Tutor, but above Into the Flood Mana feels really, really good.
Yeah, Red Blast is. Oh God, that's so misstepable.
Yeah, it's so. Oh man, and plus it's in red.
Speaking of things that are misstepable, how about mental misstep?
Mental missteps always come in pairs. They like always come in pairs.
Yeah, I think this is almost undeserving of its own tier.
Yeah.
You know, it is probably at the top of S tier because if you're casting any one of these spells and a misstep is coming your way, you want a misstep because it's just like, haha, fucker.
You fell into my trap, my mental mistrap.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's super good. I think.
I mean, it has to be at the top of its own tier list, right?
Yeah. It's throwing its own birthday party.
So let's take a quick look at this. Now that we've placed these, I have a few things that I want to do. And let me know if you agree with this. I'll kind of run down through pretty quickly. I think S tier should stop at Vampiric Tutor.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to move. Ooh, actually, we're going to do this. We're going to move top down.
Top down, reanimate.
Reanimate down. I do think Crop Rot is actually probably
Maybe
fine
we stop
here.
at Crop Rot. Yeah.
Crop Rot, yeah. So we've got 6 in S tier, all right? And A tier is looking pretty long.
A tier's chunky.
So I think
I think
this is
Blood
going,
Chief's a little too high.
going down to B.
I just don't think you see Blood Chief enough.
And then I think Scheming could probably go down to the top of B as well. Okay. And that's looking pretty good. Now, do you think Gamble or Scheming, like, do you think those should be at where they're at, or do you think they should be kind of switched?
Gamble or scheming? I think scheming's better than. I think scheming's better than gamble, but I think gamble's more common than scheming.
I think it should be something like this. Ooh. And then offer is fine here. And Swan Song's above offer, so that seems good to me.
That feels good.
All right. And then we've got these like lowly tutors down here. Vault is pretty good. Ragavan, I think Ragavan's pretty low on the misstep list here.
Yeah, but I mean, like
Ragavan can head off D for all I care. Like these tutors have to be more misstepable than Ragavan, right?
Yeah.
So we're talking like here.
That feels good.
Okay.
I feel like Blood Chief's a little too high. Maybe behind.
Imp Seal has to be above an offer.
Yeah.
Okay. And it has to be above Dark Red too, right?
Do you think it's above gamble?
Yes. Do you think it's above Entomb?
Yes.
Okay. So Imp Seal is rising the ranks.
I think it's better than Blood Chief, but I don't think it's better than scheming. Which is weird to say. I feel like a lot of people disagree with that because Imp Seal is, I think
Scheming is like, I think Scheming is incredibly powerful and underrated now, and maybe that's a hot take.
I think this is a good indication that both me and you are incredibly political players. And I think for us, scheming represents pretending to give your opponents resources so that they give you affection and love and companionship.
and wins. They are giving you wins and they don't know it.
I would honestly rather scheming symmetry than Imp Seal, but that could just be our personal take. But it is our personal tier list. I think I want to see Blood Chief maybe at the top of C.
Blood Chief at the top of C. Yeah, I think it's just like, it sucks and it's annoying.
Yeah. Like,
But
it both,
Noxious Revival's got to be like here then.
yeah, I would put Obnoxious above.
Okay. I know we're shifting things around a lot. We talked a lot about these spells, but part of the way that tier lists work is that you have to start somewhere. You don't really have context for anything, and then you kind of have to reevaluate once you're done.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we're pretty much on the right track here.
I think it feels
Although I
pretty
think
good.
Exploration's probably higher than Bloodchief because we're pretty high on that card. Remora, I can see context where you would do it and you wouldn't. Ragavan just doesn't feel right to me here.
It's just by countering Ragavan, you're countering Flare of Duplication. And their Mox Amber and their Mox Opal, which is why I like it there.
Okay. I don't agree, but I'll leave it.
I do really like where Noxious Survival's at. I think B tier looks way better now. And I like our S tier a lot.
S tier feels really clean.
S tier feels very emblematic of all the games I've played in the last few weeks.
Yes. So let's start with S tier.
Okay.
We've got Mental Misstep, Silence, Demonic Consultation, Veil of Summer, Vampiric Tutor, Crop Rotation.
In A tier, we have Sensei's Divining Top, Reanimate, Pyroblast, Slash, Ready Blast, Enlightened Tutor, Swan Song, and Into the Flood Maw.
B is Scheming Symmetry, Imperial Seal, Entomb, Gamble, Dark Ritual, Noxious Revival, and an Offer You Can't Refuse.
C is Exploration, Bloodchief Ascension, Mystical Tutor, Worldly Tutor, Mana Vault, Ragavan, and Mystic Remora.
D, we have Esper Sentinel, followed by Delighted Halfling, Birds of Paradise / any other green mana dork,
Yeah, any not delighted halfling dork.
Rite of Flame, Brainstorm, Dragon's Rage Channeler, Sarah Ascendant, Yoshimaru, the Bestest Boy, and Soul Ring.
Sorry, and in F tier we have just Flusterstorm. This feels pretty good. I'm sure there are ninjas or dwarves we didn't include in here. Deathright's not on here, but I think it would rank in the same spot as Delighted Halfling, better than the other dorks. But
Sure. I think maybe we forgot Strict Serenade.
Strict Serenade. When was the last time we saw Strict Serenade in a game?
I've seen like a Tivit run it, but it's like whatever. I don't.
If you're running it, you're on every counter spell and then some.
But that could probably fit in with like an offer.
Yeah.
Kind of that slot of like, 1 mana counter spell that's not Swan Song.
You're gonna give him a 2/2 Serenade. This feels good.
I really like this. And I think that I'm going to keep a copy of this in my binder and walk around with it and not study it, but think to myself often, would I want a mental misstep?
Would I want a mental misstep? Can I confidently say after I cast this mental misstep, now that's a good mental misstep?
Shout out to Kyle and Yaw. Well, if you have comments about this, please feel free to share them.
Yeah, well, I'm sure the vast majority of people agree with us implicitly on each and every single choice. If you're a dissenter, however rare you may be. Just kidding. I'm sure
I mean, if they're subscribers, they're like, they're right here with us.
Why would
if
they
you're not
disagree with
subscribed, what the hell are you doing? You should subscribe.
Well, so much of this was based off of me and Logan's experience in the games that we've played with the decks that we tend to pilot the most. So if you play different games and play different decks, I'm sure that some of these spells are so much stronger than we're able to see with our own 2 eyes. Let us know.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of this came from conversations that I was starting where I would say, like, why are you mental misstepping this? Like, what is the goal you're trying to accomplish? I think the thing that we need to do is take all the context in, try to do what feels best, not what we feel like we're supposed to do. Because you've talked a lot about in this video, in the before times, I felt like I was always supposed to misstep the fish. And then now it's like, no, I don't really want to do that. Like I've already learned that lesson of like, I don't need to do that anymore. So watch out for those signals and try to listen to your gut as to what feels right, not to the internet or Reddit telling you what you should do.
Yeah, I think if you disagree with a large percentage of this list, there's a good chance you also disagree with me and Logan's opinion of when you should take a player out of the game. But that in and of itself is its own conversation, potentially another video. But either way, thank you for watching. Thank you for getting to the end of this video.
And if you like Eric's t-shirt,
Oh yeah.
check out our Bonfire store. They came out awesome. The material is like super
soft,
premium.
I got compliments all over downtown. We could barely walk through the convention center. Eric,
just tens everywhere asking for your number, like, you know.
I'm just so unreasonably hot in this t-shirt, not because of the density of the fabric, but because of the attractiveness it lends me.
And not because it was 86 degrees out today. Anyway, thank you for watching. Thank you for sticking with us until the end. Find a copy of this tier list up on the description of this video, and
check it out.
We'll see you next time.
Later, guys.
Bye.